is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, with the fresh cut. Games were okay Friday, Saturday. Nothing great. It was a March Madness weekend, but we got some interesting stuff last night, Legs. How you doing?
Well, good. Let's start with the cut because I was.
Let's start there.
Okay, I've been traveling so much, and I was telling you guys before we came on, I've had the same person cut my hair back in New Jersey for literally more than 20 years. It's great. Go in. I don't say a word. I mean, other than friendly conversation, I don't have to tell her what to do. I get in, she does it, I get out. I view getting my hair cut about the equivalent of like a double root canal. That's how much I hate getting my hair cut. So the fact that I have this person, but now I'm in Florida, right? So it's harder. I can't wait. My hair was so out of control. I couldn't even style it anymore. So I went in and she cut it, and I'm not thrilled. We'll see how it turns out. You know, it's fresh. So you know how that is. First few days are always rough, but I stepped on the scale because I think I'm 8 pounds lighter because that's how much hair she took off my head. So I waited until the haircut. I feel a lot better about myself right now physically because of the hair.
I used to have a kind of along those lines. You know, every athlete has some superstitions, or almost every athlete. I wouldn't clip my nails on a game day because I didn't want to mess with the balance of my hand. So if I noticed a fingernail too long, I'd be like, I can't do it till tomorrow. I can't mess up my rhythm.
That's not bad, man. I kind of like that one. I thought you were going to say though, because you liked, making guys feel it when you fouled them, like slice and dice.
I didn't need that, man. I didn't need that. On today's show, we're going to talk about Nuggets Rockets and Jamal Murray heating up. The Nuggets snapped the Rockets' 9-game win streak in Houston, which I thought was very interesting, mostly because Jamal Murray heating up right on schedule. Every year around March, he starts to pick it up, and he picked it up last night. We're also going to talk about Anthony Davis returning tonight, or as early as tomorrow, I believe. Suns won 3 in a row. Cavs are on a little slide. We got a lot to get to, but we're going to start with the Thunder beating the Clippers 103-101 in Los Angeles last night without Chet Holmgren, without J-Dub. That's a very impressive shorthanded win, Legs, for the Thunder, who keep getting wins. Guys in and out of the rotation, they win no matter what. And yet, I walk away from that game more intrigued about Clippers topics than Thunder. Thunder, I expect to win. They've been winning all year. But this was a really interesting game and a really interesting matchup. What did you think?
Yeah, definitely. And look, the Clippers are started to take made people take notice because Kawhi's return, he looks better than the Kawhi we saw earlier, which I actually was concerned when I saw Kawhi Leonard earlier this year. We were seeing the end of Kawhi Leonard's career because he had no lift. He's still a very good mid-range jump shooter, but with less lift, there's less shots you can get off. They're even more contested. He was either shooting threes, uncontested threes, or trying to get to his mid-range. He did not have explosive ability at the rim at all. And I just started to wonder, what is this version of Kawhi Leonard? How much does he help the Clippers? Then he shut it down for a while. I didn't know if we'd see him again this year. Well, he's back, Adam. He's back.
Yeah.
He's back in a big way. And it's amazing how great this guy is because of the time he has missed, the way he has felt physically. To be able to come back at any time, just inject yourself back into the situation and play the way he's playing with this level of efficiency. This is 6 straight games. Now, over 50% from the field, pushing 30 points a game for 6 games. So you're just going to drop Kawhi Leonard into the equation in the Western Conference and have him play this well? And what does that do for the way you view, number one, the Clippers? Number two, who might have to play this team at some point? The way that he looks right now, as good as their defense is, you pair him along James Harden, who's had a very good year, Norman Powell, who's had an incredible year, Zubac, who's had a career year, and now you drop Kawhi into the mix. So for me, this is just very fascinating situation. And look, Oklahoma City ended up winning this game, but the defense that the Clippers played on them was really impressive, man. Hold that team to 103 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might have been the worst game I've seen him play all year, in large part to the Clippers defense. And then you've got Kawhi, again, another game, 10 for 20, 25 points, 10 boards. With all the time he missed, it's really incredible to think that this guy is now going to be a factor in the Western Conference playoff race. So I guess for me, the biggest takeaway is, how do you like the Clippers right now, Adam?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I told you I was starting to really believe in him. Maybe it was a month ago, 2 months ago when he first started coming back, because, he's in and out of the lineup. But when you saw it healthy, you're like, man, if that's the Kawhi you get, they are interesting. And here's the thing. I think, number one, I think Kawhi has an underratedly pretty game. He just has great footwork, really great balance on his shot. He's so strong. And number two, he has a great mix of the ability to get to his spot for a jumper. I mean, just little separations, and then he gets to that little 10-footer and he knocks it down every single time. But then last night, the Thunder have great guys at contesting that. Okay, you can get to your spot, but we're going to close out with length. Or Alex Caruso, he's just going to be in your space, not fouling, but right in your space, so that you're always thinking about that. Well, he went to bully ball at key moments last night, and that's the difference between him and, say, a DeMar DeRozan, another guy with great footwork, or some of these other guys on the perimeter. There were plays last night where he would get Caruso or Wiggins or somebody else on there who usually holds their own, and he just bully balled him straight to the rim. Didn't finish everything, surprisingly. He actually missed some bunnies I thought he shouldn't. But to me, that's part of what makes him specifically so interesting, and what makes him interesting against this Thunder group, who has a lot of great perimeter defenders. But are any of them, outside of J-Dub, strong enough if he goes to the bully ball to keep him away?
You're 100% right. And Oklahoma City arguably has more of those guys than any team in the league. That's in large part explains why they've been the best defense, and not just barely. They've lapped the field defensively. That's how much better their metrics have been than everybody else in the league. It's really incredible. And the reason is because they have so many guys. This is a perimeter-based league. You've got to have a lot of guys that can guard a lot of perimeter talent on any given night. They've got more than anybody. And so when you throw these guys at them, and you're talking about anybody in the range of 6'4", 6'5", up to 6'7", 6'8", with length, lateral quickness, and a lot of want to, that's what they have. And it didn't really affect Kawhi. I have said for probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years, Kawhi Leonard's greatest asset as a player, without question, is his ability to stay on balance at all times.
Yep.
He is never off balance. And the reason is because he's so damn strong. His lower base, and then his shoulders, he's got the wide shoulders. He knows how to use his shoulders and the upper part of his arm, so he's never having to extend. He hits you with the shoulder down to his elbow, right in the chest. He times it perfectly to get just enough separation. He doesn't jump particularly high on that jump shot. He doesn't get off the ground super high. He's got a very high release, and his arms get fully extended, locked almost, and then it's just a flick of the wrist. No arc on the ball whatsoever, right? The margin for error on his jumper is so small because the ball barely gets above the rim the entire flight path, but it's so precise, man. It hits inside the rim, hits the back of the rim, and comes straight down through the net. It's literally like a machine when he operates in that space, and it's because he's always on balance because of that strength, and that offsets a lot of the length that you could throw at him. And it's honestly the same thing with Luka. That's why this team was ineffective trying to slow Luka down last year in the playoffs, because length doesn't bother Luka Doncic. Minnesota found out the same thing. You need brawn. Now, Dort had some of that, and he probably guards Luka better than just about anybody in the league.
But he still shoots over him.
Yeah, he goes right over the top of it. And Luka's got more of a natural lean back, and he's already taller than Kawhi. Kawhi, it's just he gets you to back up, and then he goes up, and it's just boom, it's a dart. It's out of his hand so fast. So I'm just looking at this team, Adam, and I'm going, okay, there's so many qualities about him I already liked all year, but we all knew it wasn't enough. Yeah, man, this team really plays hard. They got perimeter defenders. Harden's been great, without stars around him, carrying the load as a playmaker. Norman Powell, who ever thought Norman Powell could average 23, 24 points a game in a season at this stage of his career? You name it. I love Zubac. He's one of my favorite, I don't know if you can even call him a role player. I think he's better than that now. But they didn't have the extra piece to go up against these top teams and say, wow, they can really challenge that team in a 7-game series. Kawhi is the piece. So now, when we've barely talked about the Clippers for the last couple of months, other than occasionally, hey, man, see the Clippers last night, played pretty good. Never really taken them seriously, factoring in to what the run they could make. I think you have to look at them differently, Adam.
Yeah. One of the things I think they were missing as well, obviously Kawhi not playing very consistently, but you had James Harden, you had Norman Powell. So in your key lineups, you had two scorers. You had the creator and then you had the off-ball guy. When Kawhi was there, you could find combinations of two of them, but again, he wasn't always there, and you still have moments where you're going to have only one of them on the floor. This Bogdanovic trade, to me, represents the ability to have two offensive options on the floor at all times, and at times three of them. You can put three, or I don't know if they go too much with all four guys, but you can put three of them together. And to me, that's the difference, because when I look at their lineups, they have a lot of good defenders all over the floor. I mean, Kawhi can guard, Zubac can guard, Chris Dunn can guard, Batum, Derrick Jones Jr., Ben Simmons. That's a lot of defensive combos. So you just need to have two offensive players in there somewhere. And now they have a 48-minute rotation. To me, that makes sense. And that was something they were missing earlier on. So to me, that's another reason I'm buying them, is they just have so many defenders and enough offense now for me to think it's capable.
They've won 8 out of 10, and it's fairly solid body of work. I mean, you got wins over Cleveland in there. You got a win over Memphis in there most recently. And look what they did to Oklahoma City last night. Now, I know you don't have Jalen Williams, so that's a big piece. You look at Shai's night, and I said I didn't think he played particularly well. I just thought he had one thing on his mind, man. It was scoring. And I like Shai when he's a little bit more multidimensional. All he wanted to do was score last night. I felt like every time he got the ball, he just wanted to go and score. And I know he's the league's leading scorer, but there are nights that it seems like it comes to him a little bit more easily in terms of his reads. And it just seems like, oh man, everything he does, that's the shot he should take. I didn't feel that way last night. I felt a lot of it was forced. He was forcing it against a team with this stable of defenders that you just described. And he was not able to get going. And I think the other thing that was really important in this game to note, Oklahoma City counts on their 20 they're going to get off of your turnovers.
Yep.
They count on it. They factor that into their total. It's a sixth of their scoring offense. A sixth is off of your turnovers because they're so fast to convert it to the other end of the floor. I think they had 12 or something like that in the game. So Clippers, they had 14 turnovers. It's not a terrible night. It's not certainly a great
average.
Night. It's like average for an NBA game for a team to have. But they weren't leading to the easy stuff. And they were making Oklahoma City play against the half-court defense. And their defense is very, very good. And Oklahoma City had a problem dealing with that. Now, look, they still won. So it almost sounds like we're describing a loss.
Yeah.
They won, and that's a good sign. They won a game 103-101, right? That's a very good sign. But some of the stuff that I'm drawing from the Clippers, leads me to think like, man, if they can play the Thunder this tough on a night, how tough would they be in this series? And if they can play the Thunder that tough in a series, what do they mean for a team like Denver? Or they mean for a team like Memphis or Houston or somebody else at the top of the West? If this is your matchup, I think it's interesting. Now, the key is this. Is Kawhi going to stay like this? Remember last year, he got into the playoffs and he had a great game one and then just shut it down. Like we didn't see him again. So there's a lot of ifs associated with Kawhi Leonard at this point. But the way he looks now, if that is what this is going to be the rest of the season and into the postseason, the Clippers are going to be a very difficult team to beat in a 7-game series.
Yeah, 100% on the Kawhi part and all the variables. But I will say that this year it does seem like a different approach to shut it down early and basically join the team halfway through. Like, hey, maybe if I only play the second half of the season, I can make it through. I don't know if it was as deliberate as that, but maybe. The one thing I'll say is the Clippers went to a defense that I see teams going to against OKC, and that is to try to trap Shai up high, get the ball out of his hands, and allow the team to play 4-on-5 or 4-on-3 behind him and just trust that the others won't make shots. Well, they made shots and plays in this game. The Thunder, Dort goes 2 of 4 from the three-point line. Alex Caruso, 14 points, including some clutch ones, was huge. But the battle I loved in this game, two guys I actually really like, big men, Ivica Zubac versus Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein was incredible in this one. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Like, we think of Zubac as the third guy. You got Harden, you got Kawhi, and then Zubac is their third guy. Hartenstein more of like just one of the others. He's one of the guys. And if you can get one of your guys to go to battle the way Hartenstein did against Zubac, to me, that would be a phenomenal head-to-head matchup, those two guys. And last night, I thought Hartenstein got the better of him.
It would be wild if you and I picked on all my guy team and
Oh
played
no.
5-on-5. I think these are the two centers because
Yeah, I
I
think it
did
is.
grab I did grab Zubac last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
and even then he was starting to emerge. But I still think he was qualified as a guy.
Sure.
He's better than that now, I think.
Yeah.
But still, you're talking about two guys that they don't roll off your tongue when you talk about the
Right.
top centers in the NBA. But just look at their production. It was a fun battle to watch these two going at it.
Really fun.
Zubac is more of the power stuff around the rim, and he gets on the offensive glass. Hartenstein, with that floater, he hit 2 or 3 of those. I say he's releasing dubs into the air. That's what it looks like.
That's what it
But it ends up at the
Oh.
bottom of the net, and like the one of them, maybe the third one he hit. I watched it back because I watched Zubac's body reaction because he went to help. And then there was Hartenstein at like 12 feet, like right in front of the foul line. And Zubac's like, I can get back to him. And he goes to close out, and then he hits him with that teardrop shot. Zubac turns around, it goes in, and just his shoulders dropped. And it's like so frustrating. But those two guys were so fun to watch in this battle. And it's funny you mentioned that about Caruso. Go back. I defy anybody to find me any player in the league this season whose first 3 shot attempts of the game looked worse than Alex Caruso's did in this game. And he still ended up with 14 because I thought, I'm not exaggerating, he shot a 3 from the right side first trip of the game. Barely grazed the rim. The very next possession, or maybe it was 2 trips later, he's in the opposite corner, wide open, 3, air ball, not even close. It's right and short. Misses the rim by 1.5 feet. His third attempt was like 2 trips later. He has an uncontested layup and he shoots an air ball over the rim. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on with Caruso, to the point you're thinking, this guy might not shoot the rest of the night. But he's a mentally tough guy, and he hung in there, ended up having a very good game. The guy that was kind of just really below his standard for them was Shai. And so maybe you say, hey, man, you guys are raving about the Clippers. No, Jalen Williams. Shai was not very good. One of his worst games of the year, and we won the game by 2 points. That's probably a fair point to make. And seeing OKC at full strength, maybe against this Clippers team, would have been more interesting to watch that. But the bottom line is, we know who the Thunder are.
Yep.
I don't know about you. I fully expect them to be minimum conference finals. And actually, right now, I'd probably be surprised if they weren't in the NBA finals. The Clippers were a team I kind of wrote off as just like, okay, man, I admire them. They're going home in the first round in 5 or 6 games. And I just don't know if I feel the same way anymore.
Well, here's why I don't want to hand the Thunder that just yet, even though they've earned it. Like, this, Thunder fans are going to get mad at me for this because 59-12 speaks for itself. But this is a potential first-round matchup. With the Clippers or the Wolves, looks like the most likely first-round matchup. Both of those teams represent something that I think the Thunder are going to have to solve. Not just that they're going to out-talent them and this or that. I think those are tough matchups for them. You go into a second round, I don't know what that's going to look like just yet. It could be the Lakers. It could be Denver. That's a tough path. I think that they're going to have a tough path to get there. And while they're a great team, I do look at big wings in particular, size in particular. Those are the teams that I think have had success against them. And both the Clippers, the Lakers, and even the Wolves can give them a size problem that I think will be interesting. So I'm with you. They deserve the benefit of the doubt. They proved it, everything else. But I just look at the last night's game. I look at what those two teams can do, and I say I would love Thunder Clippers in the first round. I think that's a great first round series.
And now I'm going to shift this for a second because they deserve it. Let's go bigger picture with the Thunder, because we're talking about one night, and we were focused on the Clippers, right? Because they are a little bit eye opening right now as a team that's suddenly like in the mix. You have to talk about them. Thunder have won 22 out of 25 games. All right. They're 22-3 in their last 25. More importantly, have you noticed what's happened because of what's going on with Cleveland lately?
I know.
Oklahoma City now has a 2-game lead for best overall record. And they were a game behind them like 10 days ago. Now you find yourself with a 2-game advantage. And that's one of the reasons we knew, despite this huge lead in the West, they were going to keep playing their guys. Ideally, it would be, hey, they've got a 6-game lead over Cleveland too, and they could pick nights to rest people. But they obviously, as they should, clearly want home court advantage throughout the finals. And that's what they've grabbed control of right now with 11 games to go. They're firmly in the driver's seat to get that. And that's why maybe that's why, even last night, on a night Shai wasn't feeling it, he still was just so much pressing the issue and forced the issue because he didn't have his running mate co-star and he knew how important the game was. And I'm looking at OKC just going, man, you guys are handling business. I mean, they're handling business. There's not really anything to nitpick about this team when they're fully healthy. So this is going to be interesting to see the last 11 games, how this plays out. I think they're most likely now going to get home court advantage throughout the finals. Be pretty incredible. And if they have that and they get upset early, first round or second round, I'm telling you, it's going to have a carryover effect going forward with this team. Despite how young they are, that'd be 2 years in a row with the number 1 seed in the Western Conference not getting to the conference finals. Now, look, again, I don't expect that to happen. I think they're going to the finals as we sit here right now. But I'm just saying there are some teams, and you just mentioned it, Clippers, Minnesota, like these are going to be challenging teams for them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out for OKC here over the last 3 weeks. You get these last 11 in, probably end up with the best record in the NBA.
Well, they have one more thing that I think about when you talk about grabbing that number 1 overall seed, which is I think they're the best team in the NBA when they're missing one of their top 3 guys. And that's a luxury. They have guys that they can plug and play and not lose as much as other teams who, we're missing a top player. We're missing Anthony Edwards. Our team's really going to struggle tonight, something like that. They have the ability to win games. And if you're playing the Bulls, the Kings, like a middle of the pack team, if you're playing one of those teams and Chet's out, I think you can still win. J-Dub's out, you could still win. So they might be able to mix rest and still win games and just really set themselves up for a nice playoff run. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we want to get into some Nuggets-Rockets talk. The Nuggets snapped the Rockets' 9-game win streak, and they did it behind Jamal Murray, who is starting to heat up a little bit and look like his former self. So we'll talk about that on the other side. First, let me tell you guys about Monarch Money. Finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. So much about how you build wealth is how you invest your money, where you put your money, and how you track it. And tracking it can be very difficult, especially when you're investing in a bunch of different places. Monarch Money brings that all together with you so you can track your finance and start building wealth with 50% off your first year for listeners of this very show. Start managing your finances to build the life you actually want. Set goals and track those goals along the way. Get advice. They have a finance tool people actually love. Over 1 million households right now are using the product. Named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. The top recommended personal finance app by users and experts with over 30,000 5-star reviews. Lots of different features and lots of different things on there. So if you are one of those people that knows you have to get serious about your investments and tracking your money, then you want to get over to Monarch Money. Use the code ALLNBA at monarchmoney.com. There's also the link in the description of the show, but you can put monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com, but only when you use the code ALLNBA. Also, get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Right now, we're almost at opening day for Major League Baseball. When you're out at the baseball field, half of those seats are going to be right in the sun. You're going to need some nice shades. Well, you can head over to Shady Rays. They're an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. Hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair that matches your style. They really do have every style of sunglass over there, so you can pick something out that's going to work. Or if you are going to the ballpark and you just need a pair that matches your team's color, so they go with your jersey, they probably have that for you as well. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays has given out their best deal of the season. Head to Shady Rays and use our code. It helps us out. They track these things. Use our code AC35. You get 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Back here on the All NBA Show, everybody make sure you throw us a like button right now. Hit that like button so you can help us grow the show. We get lots of reviews on this one. Help us grow it. The easiest thing you can do is make sure you're subscribed. Leave comments down below. Let us know what you're thinking because that'll also grow the show. But hit that like button is the easiest way. Legs, my Denver Nuggets were in Houston last night and got the win 116-111, despite not having Nikola Jokic. He's now missed 4 games in a row. I think he's going to miss a couple more with an actual ankle injury, ankle impingement, as they're calling it. He's also dealing with a shoulder injury. But the Nuggets need to find ways to get wins without him. They've had 2 blowouts, sandwiched by 2 good wins, one over the Golden State Warriors last week, and then one to end the road trip over the Rockets. And they did it because Jamal Murray was on fire. 39 points, 7 assists, just 1 turnover in his 38 minutes. And he was scoring from, if you look at his shot chart, it was all over the court. It was a lot of mid-range, a lot of threes, a lot at the rim. He had the whole package going on against one of the best perimeter defenses in the NBA. So how'd he do it?
Well, all right. So let's start off with this. Because there's a lot of different angles with Jamal Murray. And I think that is the topic right now for them, considering Jokic isn't playing. And Jamal Murray is just such a X factor for that team and really an X factor for the entire Western Conference, depending on how he's playing. So just this specific game, this is a great perimeter defensive team. And they have a number of guys they can drape on you. And they did. They all took turns, and they couldn't slow him down. I love watching Jamal Murray like this. I love watching him play like this. When he gets into his comfort zone, when he starts playing with the basketball in front of guys and really setting you up which direction he's going to go, you know he's feeling good. And he got into that pretty early in this game, where he would get a switch and he'd back up doing the scissor dribble, and then he'd just go at a guy and just get to his spot, elevate, hit, turn the corner, get to the rim, shoot the deep ball, whatever it was. Did what he wanted against one of the better perimeter defensive groups in this league. So he's had a very, very good year. There's no other way to describe it. Now, his March, not as good as his February. He was even better in February than he has been in March. But still, the numbers very, very good. I'm glad you brought up the turnovers, because against Houston, against Oklahoma City, against teams like that you're prone to it. If you're handling the basketball against guys like that kind of length and lateral quickness, like, you're prone to it. You're going to have 3 or 4, particularly if you don't have Jokic to run everything through. And you look up, Jamal Murray had 1. And Adam, his assist to turnover ratio in March is almost 5-1. It's almost 5-1. The guy has barely been turning the ball over this entire month. And it gives you so much of a better chance offensively when you're getting something up on the glass, something up on the backboard. Give yourself a chance to convert, because if you look at their numbers as a team last night, how many games this year I don't know the answer to this, so this is a hypothetical question, but how many games do you think teams have won shooting 21 3-point shots? They took 21 threes, Adam. That's a quarter. That's a quarter for the Celtics.
Yeah, it really is. They're a mid-range team, though.
21 from the 3? Like, what? Yeah. I was like, wait a second. I had to look at the date on the box score. Is this 1997? What are we doing here?
Beautiful game.
So when you're not taking threes, which they take less than any team in the league anyway, but even by their standards, that's like 30% less than they normally take. And they're already the lowest volume team in the league. So your margin for error is so small, you better take care of the ball if you're not going to make threes, because threes can erase a lot of mistakes. If you could string together 3 or 4 of those in a short period, and a lot of teams live by that. Cleveland, Boston, these teams live by that stuff. Denver doesn't. And so that is even more important, to take care of the ball, get shots. And it's a very unusual box score that Denver hit you with last night. It was led, obviously, by a great night by Jamal Murray, who carried them against a very good defensive team without their star. Impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And I think that Jamal Murray is a mid-range scorer. You know, he makes the 3, and he had a couple last night, really, really nice ones, some difficult threes, but he is a mid-range guy. And part of why I think Denver is always a better playoff team than they are a regular season team is, in the playoffs, defenses are going to scramble a little bit harder. Those rotations to the rim and then out to the 3-point line are a little bit tougher. And oftentimes the teams that are more comfortable in the mid-range are able to close out tight games. Denver's been very good at closing out games. And then last night, you just saw how comfortable Jamal Murray was. Floaters, leaners, step back, side steps. He has those jittery moves where he'll do 3 or 4 crossovers in a row and then get into a shooting motion. He's just so comfortable with those. And Legs, here's a stat for you. Last night was his 11th 30-point game of the season. That's the most of his career. His previous high was 9. 30 points is not a lot. It's not that many points. But for him to have 11, and by the way, his first 30-point game this year, December 28th. So he has 10 of them in 2025. And that just shows you Denver is two teams when they have Jamal Murray going at full speed and when they don't. And right now they have him there. And that's one reason to sort of buy the Nuggets.
Well, listen, it's his career high, barely, in scoring for a season. He was 21.2 two different times. He's 21.6. And honestly, if you look at it, a lot of that had to do with a pretty slow start. He averaged 18 points a game in October, 17 in November. And since then, look at his monthly split: December 22, January 21, February almost 25, and he's 23 in March. Yeah. So the slow start, he has even, picked that up just slightly. He's probably averaging over 23 points a game for the season. He's had a very good year. There's no other way to interpret it. Now, can I be devil's advocate on him?
Please.
All right. There is something, though, that is concerning. So they are 5-5 in March. So just looking at their recent, I know they haven't had Jokic. That matters, clearly, obviously. But just looking at his performances, there have been some teams that have bottled him up.
Oh, there's no question.
And they lose when that happens. And that's what's scary, because it happened last year, right, to a certain extent, in the Minnesota series.
Yeah.
Right. He got bottled up and swallowed up. Now, he had moments in that series, particularly like when they changed venue down 0-2 and he went to Minnesota. Game 3, he was incredible. Got them a win, got them back in the series. But for the most part, they really did a number on him. I felt like, you look at recently, the game I called, Oklahoma City game. They lose that game 6 for 17 points on a night, close game. They got away from them late, but like that you needed Jamal Murray in that game. The Minnesota game, they lose by 20, 4 for 15 in that game. And then the other really only bad game he's had in March was the Portland game, which I didn't see, which I'm sure you did, which I'm not sure what happened that night, but he only took 10 shots and didn't get to the line at all. 10 points in 35 minutes. I don't know how you even explain that. That kind of stat line. I didn't see the game. They lost by 20. So maybe you have more context there. But so he's so important, Adam. And there's been some defenses he hasn't been able to crack the code that are very important teams that they played against.
Yeah, there's no question about it. That's why he's such a mystery box. And you were mentioning the start of season to late season. It's every year, Legs. You can go back last year. It's going to be the exact same split. 16, 17, 18 points a game in October, November. Somewhere around December, he starts getting it going. Then January, February, March are good. It's frustrating, but at the same time, you watch him play. Dillon Brooks is a good defender. He just has Dillon Brooks' number. Amen Thompson's a great defender. He fared well against him. So there's some guys, even great defenders, that he's good against. But to your point, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, those guys have had his number, and that's what makes them so interesting. I want to ask another question, though, and this one's about Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook reminds me a little bit of Bruce Brown. If you think back to 2023, I mean, they both play hard. They're guards. They're quick with the ball. Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic have played 1,200 minutes together. They're a plus 7.7 in the regular season. 617 minutes for Westbrook without Jokic. So about 2-to-1 ratio with Jokic to without. Bruce Brown was somewhat similar, 1,230 minutes back in 2023, plus 9.4, 1,050 without. So he played more minutes without Jokic than Westbrook did. But in the playoffs, it was almost exclusively with Jokic because you shorten your rotation down to 7 guys and, okay, now you're going to get there. I look at Westbrook and I think he brings a lot to the table, both good and bad. And in this game, he blew leads, he gained leads, he saved the game, he almost lost the game. He was up and down. I think in the playoffs, he's mostly going to be on the floor with Jokic, which makes me think and gives me hope. I know that he creates his own problems with the not shooting, but it makes me think that if you just told me he's only playing with Jokic in the playoffs, I would say he's going to be a positive impact player.
No doubt. And I think that's actually a great comp. I'm picturing now in my head, like I visually can see Bruce Brown playing with those Denver teams and what he did. And there are some differences. Obviously, Westbrook, more of that straight ahead burst thrust up the court and just a better playmaker because he's more of a natural point guard. Bruce Brown is not. Bruce Brown did a bit more consistent with that perimeter shot. Like you felt more confident he was going to knock down a 3. With Westbrook, you kind of cross your fingers when he jumps, even though he's had a career year shooting the 3. You still kind of feel like, man, is that going to go in every time he goes to shoot it from out there? And he still isn't guarded very often out there, so they let him have that shot. But there are so many similarities that both of these guys bring to the table. I think it's a very fair point. And his chemistry Westbrook's specifically with Jokic has been, I think, one of the great stories in terms of a personnel acquisition and that maybe there was some skepticism over at works because I had a ton. I think I might have texted you. We had our old text. We text each other so much we probably couldn't find it. When that happened, I think I remember I probably texted you something like pretty incredulous about just.
You said, "What were they thinking?"
Well, understanding the fit, like what?
Yeah.
With the way they play off the ball, didn't you guys watch how uncomfortable he was off the ball in LA? Like it was just glaring, but that's here to their credit. He's on the ball quite a bit.
Yeah.
They have found a way to put him on the ball. He's got the ball a lot when he's in the game. He did not have it very much in LA, and that's why he just didn't have any idea how to affect the game. And everything he did snowballed against him. And I thought all along he was a scapegoat for that whole thing because it wasn't fair to him. This somehow, Michael Malone, Jokic, this team has, even with a starting point guard, has figured out a way to let Russell Westbrook feel more comfortable that he's living up to the name on the back of his jersey. He didn't feel that way in Los Angeles at all. He felt like they were asking him to be something foreign, and it was a disaster. Here, they've let him be himself, and they value him for what he brings. And it's been awesome, man, and I love watching the guy again.
Yeah, he is fun to watch. When he's playing well, he's as fun as anybody to watch because he's playing so hard. He gets reckless, and he just has these stints where it'll be 3-4 turnovers in a 4-minute span, and it's just absolute killer. But Denver has a starting five, I believe, in all five guys. They have their holes, they have their weaknesses, but they're playoff rotation five. Russell Westbrook makes 6. My question for Denver is, who is their 7th guy? Because I think it needs to be Peyton Watson. He played 21 minutes in this game, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, one steal, 2 blocks. But he's a guy right now that I think is more a mystery than anything. Like if you go into a playoff rotation or playoffs and he has to give you 15 minutes, you might lose the game on those 15 minutes. And so when you watch, is there a guy that you think makes their 7th guy? And if it's Peyton, what do you make of him?
Well, it's a shame because I think it would have been Strother, and that's a big loss for them, man. No, he can't guard. He can't guard, but I do believe you're going to be able to pencil in something around double figures, even in the playoffs. I think Strother can score. I think he would have done that. He would have gotten the minutes. He was averaging 22 minutes a game in the 61 games he played. 43% from the field, 36 from the 3. Kind of like a reserve numbers. Those are what the reserves do in this league that shoot a lot, but Watson has to be it. Who else would it be? There really isn't anybody else you'd go to. It's not, Jalen Pickett. It's not DeAndre Jordan, who, by the way, had one of the, he had a great dunk last night, man.
He really did.
That lob 3-point play, reverse dunk. Yeah, next time I see him, man, he always comes over and says hi to me. Like if I call one of their games and daps me up before the game. He's always just so friendly. I got to say something about that dunk because I don't know. Nice. I don't know how he still has that in the bag, man. Like he doesn't play a lot. So his joints are probably stiff as hell. He comes in the game and they throw him a lob and he just catches it, dunks it behind his head for a 3-point play. Like it was nothing, but it's obviously not him. It's not Conchar, Hunter Tyson, Zeke Naji. It's none of these guys. It's Peyton Watson. He's a big pendulum swinger for the Denver Nuggets, man, on the nights he plays well, because his defense is very important, even though he shouldn't talk to a guy that's already got like 20 in the game the way he did Luka. That just probably wasn't very smart. That probably wasn't very smart. Like, he's getting Luka literally set him on fire. And then he finally gets a piece of one on a layup, and he has something to say. It was pretty fun.
Also, Luka, real quick on that, because Luka's the type of guy, Anthony Edwards is this guy, they're trying to get a Peyton Watson type to say something. You know what I mean? Like, I got 20 points, but I need a little more juice. I need something. So I'm going to poke him and see if he's going to dumb enough to respond. And he did.
It's pretty funny. I was sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm calling that game, and I'm looking at them jaw. And it's hard to pick it up on TV, but I thought at one point Luka asked him who he was. I thought that just kind of made me laugh. Because I was thinking Luka might not know. I don't know. You don't know that. Maybe. Yeah. But it was just funny. By the way, I'm kind of joking in a way that, you know what, man? No, if a guy is going to do that, and by the way, it wasn't just him. His first 4 baskets were 4 different defenders, and they were all just one-on-one moves where he just beat everybody on the team. But No, you know what, man? If he's lighting you up and you finally do make a play, yeah, let him know about it. I'm all right with that, Peyton Watson. I'm okay with that,
Yeah,
man.
right.
You don't know.
You just
You don't
want
know how many chances you're going to get on a night against Luca. So go ahead, man. Say something.
bad advice. This is bad advice. Last note I have on this game with Houston, my one concern for Houston, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them. We've said this all year. You look at the 9-game win streak, their best wins were against Orlando. This happens to every team. They get a soft part in the schedule, and winning those games is impressive because it's just hard to string 9 together, but it wasn't like a murderer's row. Denver was the best team they played over the last 10, and they dropped that one. But the thing that concerns me with them is just, can they score? And last night, they went to 2 centers at the same time. They played Şengün and Adams together heavy minutes last night, in part because Denver didn't have Jokic in there, but also in part, I think, because the margin scoring matter. They're good defensively, but offensively in a half-court setting, they can get clunky. And I think they were like, just go hit the offensive boards, play 2 centers and see if we can do it. And Denver did a good job, a lot of because of DeAndre, a good job of mitigating that. But that's my concern about the Rockets, that this late in the season, they have to go to Steven Adams, Şengün combos in a key game just to create some kind of offensive opportunity.
Yeah, that was surprising to see those 2 guys paired up together. Steve Adams played well.
10
yeah,
offensive
I agree.
rebounds.
I agree. Listen, I agree. Houston has a ceiling. They're a very admirable team. I love how hard they play. They have young talent. I think Jabari Smith is probably the pendulum for them. Everybody's got one. I think he is for them. There are nights when he adds supplemental scoring to them and he's comfortable with his 3-point shot. And that is so important to their team because you can get some wildly inconsistent nights out of Jalen Green, even Şengün. Şengün's a really good player, but there's nights Şengün will give you 12 points. That's tough to win, man, in the playoffs. If like those are your 2 best guys. Jalen Green, he can give you a 6 for 20 on a given night. Like, they're not as consistent as some of the top scorers on some of these other teams with how they play. So when you can chip in, Dylan Brooks is another pendulum for them. There's nights he might make 4 or 5 threes. That's so important to their team, man. Jabari Smith, the same. So those guys are the guys I look at and just go, their season is directly correlated to how those type of players step up on given nights in the postseason. It's that simple. But I have another question about this game for you. Yeah. What's going on with Jokic?
I mean, I think he's really banged up. Jokic's played more minutes than all, but
when's he going to play?
My hunch is that they have a game Friday against Utah and then a big game on Tuesday against Minnesota. I would not be surprised if he does not play until next Tuesday. He carried, we talked about Murray not being very good to start the year. He carried the Nuggets through the first 2 months of the season when nobody was good. You remember those monster numbers he put up basically 2 months. I think Jokic has pushed his body through a bunch of little bumps and bruises and finally got to a point where he just needed the time off physically with this ankle injury. So I think he's actually hurt. I think there should be at least a little concern for it. If he goes beyond next Tuesday, I would be very concerned.
All right, couple things then about that. First is they are currently 3rd place, 1 game back at Houston. Off the top of your head, do you know if they have the tiebreaker with Houston?
I do. So it's 1-1. And guess when they play next legs? The last game of the year, Denver at Houston. I love that could come down to that game could be for the actual position in the standings.
And I'm guessing, why wouldn't they? Denver should be all in to get the 2, right? I mean, you want the 2, host 2 rounds, avoid Oklahoma City. Like, it doesn't get better than that. No, you don't think?
If Minnesota's in that 7 seed, and again, you won't know.
Oh, interesting.
I'm telling you, I think Denver will try to avoid Minnesota. I just think they will.
Somebody's scared of the dark. Okay, I didn't realize you need a night light.
I'm not saying myself, but I would bet Denver would want to be in that position.
Okay, so all right, so you're saying actually then it could manipulate. All right, let me ask you this: how do you think Houston feels about Minnesota?
I honestly don't know what they think about. I think Houston probably will more prioritize. All these matchups are going to be tough for them. They'll probably just want the higher seed.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting if that came down to that, and for some reason Denver didn't, they wanted to avoid that. I personally think it's terrible psychologically to approach anything like that, but if they were to do that, that would be interesting, something to watch. The reason I bring all this up is they've got 10 games left, Denver, 7 at home. And without Jokic, now you would think they could beat Chicago tonight at home. Right? I mean, Chicago has these nights where they put up big numbers, though. They should be able to win that game without him. Then you got Milwaukee on Wednesday at home. That's a tough game. No Jokic. And then Utah Friday. It doesn't matter. Jokic, he shouldn't even think about playing that night if you got Utah at home. And then sets up Minnesota. So look, if they can go 2-1 in these next 3 leading up to him coming back against Minnesota, maybe that's how they should approach it. But I think I find it fascinating to think I didn't even look, by the way. What's going on behind them? What do the standings look like?
It's so tight. It's like almost a tie. There's 2 games separating 2 through 5.
Lakers are tied in the loss column. So you got that situation. And then Memphis a game back in the loss column.
Memphis just lost.
Denver flirting with 2 to 5.
Yep.
So what we're looking at.
Well, one of the things I love, Legs, I'm telling you, Denver's last 2 games are Memphis at home, at Houston. So they're going to have the last 2 games almost certainly will matter for positioning. And I think it's going to come down to that.
Well, I would like to see Denver just go all out. They're not playing Jokic through injury, but like trying to win all these games, regardless of the last 2 games of the year, where they sit. I would prefer to see teams in that situation. You have someone come in, tuck them in, reassure them there's no monster under the bed. We could turn the lights off. Don't be scared. Play. If you're a 2, you're a 2 for a reason. You're a 7 for a reason. That's always been my mentality, man.
Yeah.
Because we're getting some talk about that in the other conference too. And I'm just like, I just think if you're worried about that, I don't know, man. I think there's something about that. It's the wrong approach. For me,
I get it. I totally get it.
Give me home court, man, for 2 rounds. Give me home court. I want to know that game 7 is on my court. That to me is more important than anything. That's what you play all year for. Give me that situation and not have to play Oklahoma City till the conference finals. That's how I would approach that, man. If you screw around, end up in the 4 or 5, even if you win that round, you got to play the Thunder next. And maybe you're not as worried about the Thunder as Minnesota. I don't know.
Jokic carried the team last year. Jamal Murray in and out of the lineup. He goes to the Olympics. You know how that went. He's carrying Team Serbia. Didn't have a break in the summer. Comes into the season. Jamal Murray's not healthy, not in shape. He's carrying him through it. I just think Jokic is probably his most tired and physically beat up than he's ever been in his career. I mean, you watch some of these games.
That way. The guy plays, man. Like you can't deny the guy plays. And so we've had some unfortunate luck with some games where he didn't play recently, but that's just the luck of the draw because for the most part, you can't question that with him. And even the game, the last game, Denver game we did, I mean, Michael Malone said like he came over to the arena that morning and tried to get himself going and just did not feel right. Jamal Murray in shoot around that day, they were saying they were preparing to play that night. And then he came back over for the pregame workout, didn't feel right. So he didn't play that night either. But for Jokic, it definitely is like, man, we know it. No one was questioning it, man. This guy must be banged up. And you need, obviously, I mean, if any player maybe in this entire league, a team needs a guy, it's them needing him to feel full strength going into the postseason.
I think if you told the Nuggets they would go 2-1 over these next 3 and Jokic could get all the way till next Tuesday off, I think that'd be like 20 days or 21 days he would have off. I think he would take it. I mean, to going into the playoffs, that would be a good sort of reset for him physically. And I think Denver obviously needs him in his full strength.
Right, if he's got that kind of rest, Adam, he might actually drop a 40-30-30 game on somebody. Up the ante. Just keep upping the ante, man.
What's next? What's left? A couple quick hitters to get us out of here. Some news and notes. Anthony Davis has been upgraded to questionable to come and play. Is it tonight or tomorrow? Let me see. It's tonight against the Nets, Mavericks Nets. Tonight, upgraded to questionable. First of all, shout out to Anthony Davis. It'd be so easy to just throw in the towel on this year and say, man, things didn't work out. All these different things happen. For him to come back and to give it a go and even a little bit ahead of schedule, to me, look, man, they can be interesting for all the talk about them, and they're not in a great spot now. They're going to have to come through the play-in. But you look at them right now, tied for that 10 seed with Phoenix. I look at this and I go, if Anthony Davis can give you anything, this is going to set up for a great final 3 weeks for the Mavs.
6-12 overall without him. More importantly, he's lost 11 out of 14. I thought when Kyrie Irving went down with his ACL injury, you weren't going to see Anthony Davis again. I didn't think we'd see him. So I'll give him credit. I mean, the guy has been saying all along, and if you listen and paid attention, they were saying, no, he wants to play. He's not looking at shutting it down. It almost seemed like at one point the team wanted him to, and he was fighting that. I give them credit for that if that's the case, and battling to get back, because now they had a little fairly comfortable lead on Phoenix, who looked just dead in the water. All of a sudden now you look up, Phoenix has won 3 in a row. Durant had 42 in the last game, and now they've jumped over them. Now Phoenix is in the 10th spot, and they desperately want to get in. There's no rebuilding going on in Phoenix with those guys on that team. You got stars at the top of your roster. You're trying to compete. So now they feel better about themselves. Here comes Dallas now on the outside looking in, but basically tied with Phoenix. And getting Anthony Davis back, a shot in the arm here at the end of the year, and reminding the Mavericks fans what they saw that first half that he played a long time ago when he dropped like 24 and a half against Houston and then shut it down with that injury. So this is an interesting development, man. And it makes that play-in a lot more interesting if Dallas is actually gets him back and they're trying all out to try to get in that.
Nets always give people a hard time. So you get a win tonight. The Suns host the Bucks tonight. That's a tough game. They very well could lose that. You move back into the play-in if those two things happen. But then the Celtics play the Kings tonight in Sacramento. On paper, I look at that and think that Boston's going to win that game. So that tonight, you could find yourself where one game is separating 11, 10, 9, and then the home stretch is could be any one of the combination of those players or of those teams, which I think would be interesting. The last one I have for you, the Cavs just stopped a 4-game slide with a win over Utah. Here's my take, because this stuff happens late in seasons, right? I don't want to overreact to anything. Team's been hot all year. They are what their record says, and even when they go on slides, whatever. But here's my concern. I always think back to an interview, I believe it was with Kevin O'Connor that Donovan Mitchell did years back, where he talked about how he pushes himself so hard physically, and he's had to learn not to in the regular season. He's one of those guys that'll play a full game, overtime, go to the gym and get a workout in because he's wanting to maximize everything. But he talks about how he's learned in his career that he's worn out as seasons have gone on, and he's been worn out going into the playoffs. He hasn't been great for the last week or so. And I just look at that and I go, Donovan Mitchell is one of those guys. Did he push too hard? Is he a guy that, we should be concerned about that in any way?
I think a little bit. I think if you look at his track record throughout his career in the postseason. Now, a lot of this was Utah, and his usage rate was off the charts, and I thought there were just nights they were offensively challenged a little bit more. He felt like he had to be a hero, and his shot selection wasn't great. His efficiency dropped, and that kind of carried over a little bit to what you've seen in Cleveland. So he's critical, man. Like they're a really, really good team, but he is certainly the most important player. Donovan Mitchell needs to be efficient when they get into the postseason to fulfill their ceiling, which is a conference final matchup with the Boston Celtics. And whether they win that series or not, we'll see. We'll see how they look over the first 2 rounds, how he plays, how their defense is. Right now, their defense has just taken a turn for the worse over this stretch. Now, this was a West Coast trip. They lost the first one against Orlando at home. I called that game. Orlando just fought. They played that game like it was the last game of their lives. That's how hard they played in that game. And they got one. And they shut them down from the 3-point line, and they got a win. Then they go west. They lose to the Clippers, the Kings, the Suns. They lose 3 games on the West Coast before they finally rebound and they get the one against Utah. They got one more game on this trip at Portland. Very important. They finished the trip the right way. Win 2 games they're supposed to win, and then go home. Their schedule is not easy the rest of the way. So it's important, Adam, I think very important, that the Cleveland Cavaliers get back on a roll here, headed into the postseason for them psychologically.
Yeah. 0-13, by the way, from 3, Donovan Mitchell, these last 2 games. If you just look at his last 6, 15 points, 23, 18, 26, 7, 16. No breakout games, over these last little bit. So just something to keep an eye on. I'm going to say, I think Cavs are fine. I think they're going to be fine. But Donovan Mitchell, it is just a thing that we've seen before. So I just thought I would bring it up as a thing to kind of keep our eye on. All right, we got some super chats. What do we have, James? What are the people saying? Mark Cooper says, FYI, watching games with my 2 grandsons, 18 and 20, say Legs is the best on TV. You like it, man?
All right, let's go. I love it. I love your grandchildren too. Let's go. Keep it going. Get some more signatures on that. Get some more signatures on that. Come on, let's go.
Exactly. At ESPN. Jay Kerr says Clippers need to be taken seriously. Legs. Case in point, your haircut. Honesty, you still look handsome. Thanks for the pillow talk.
Come on, man. Come on. It was, hey, I'm 72 hours out. It was a lot worse when I got home that day. Now we're starting to get some understanding of what's supposed to happen up here.
Oh man, people are too nice to you on this show, man. They got to take a page out of my book. Victor Bello says Legs on ESPN is the NBA version of Madden. I like that. I love how he breaks down the actual plays in a technical way my kids and I understand. Look at that. Some love for you today,
I love
man.
it, man. Just keep it coming.
Yeah.
I didn't realize my family was watching today. All these chats coming in from family members. This is great.
James, you have my shout outs coming. Are those coming up? Let's find out. Mike, but not Ike. Adam, what would Yoke and DJ look like? Also, Murray is king placebo. It's funny. Legs, who is the current player most fun to watch when they are putting on their master classes? Legs has seen a few from Denver. Oh, yeah. Some of the games you've called in Denver, guys have had a master class against Denver.
Very true.
It's got to be Luka, I'm guessing, for you.
Yeah, there are a number of guys, man. I mean, Shai's up there for me right now. I still love watching Luka play when he gets cooking. That's a lot of fun when Luka gets going. There's a lot going on there with him. The facial expressions, the talking, the simplicity with which he's doing it. He's still a guy for me. And then you always, obviously, anytime Curry gets going.
Yep. I was gonna say there's an easy number one to me. There's no player to me in history more fun than Steph Curry when he's in the zone. Because every shot just feels like it's going in. I don't think Jokic and DJ can play together. This is 2025, man. You're not playing DeAndre Jordan and Nikola Jokic together. What else we got? Richard Rose says, the Warriors are in Miami for 5 days because of weird scheduling. Can this mini vacation be helpful? Has Legs ever experienced something like this? That is weird. 5 days? You're going to be in Miami?
If I'm anywhere for 5 days, man, I'm telling you right now, I'm usually sitting in chest deep in tropical water with a mixed drink in my hand. That's the only place I go for 5 days if I'm not at home. So, no, that's very, very strange. I didn't even realize this was going on. Did you know this, Adam?
Well, I'm just looking at it now. So they played in Atlanta on Saturday. So they maybe maybe you fly home. I don't know. They play on Tuesday at Miami, and then they don't play again until Friday at New Orleans. So yeah, they probably at least 3 or 4 days in Miami.
Can I bring something up I know for a fact happened? I don't know what year this was. It was within the last 5 years, though. They went on, I guess, a similar trip, Golden State, and they went to Atlanta, and they had a day off before their next game where they were going. And Steph Curry, I think Klay Thompson too, stayed behind and played Augusta, the site of the Masters. And apparently, first time Steph Curry played Augusta, he shot a 74. That's what the legend is about Steph Curry. So maybe he's getting some golf in with these additional days. I think he's like a pitcher. You know, in these major league teams, they travel with their golf clubs because they work every 5 days.
We gotta go golfing when you come out here to call the Nuggets playoff series.
Can you golf? Are you a good golfer?
I'm not good. But I can play. Like, you know, I'm not going to slow you down too much. But my theory is
you're not going to slow me down at all now, because I was actually on my way to becoming a very good golfer, and that's part of the reason we relocated to Florida. I was going to take it seriously for the first time in my life. I wanted to really cut into my handicap, and I was going to take it so seriously. And then we have an almost 3.5-year-old now. It coincided with us moving to Florida. I haven't had any time to play golf. My clubs are just gathering cobwebs in my garage, but when my son gets a little bit older, it'll be easier for me. So I'm going to take it back up in a strong way. But right now, if I went out and played, no, I'd be trash. I'd be terrible.
All right. Well, people want to see it. Legs versus Adam. Let's see what happens. Any more, James? Is that it?
Not a super chat, but just one to throw up there, just so you feel
good. Look at, there it is. There's the love. There was the love. Spreading it around,
you think I'm going to count that? That does not count.
That counts,
Absolutely not. There's love. You know what that is? They call that therapists would call that self-love. You know what they say, man? If you want to guarantee you get flowers, send them to yourself. That's what they say about flowers. That's what you just did. It's unbelievable. You two working in collusion. Mine organically come pouring in.
Oh my God. Listen to what you guys have done. You've created a monster over here. You try to say something nice and now he's a monster.
Hey, I listened to this audio clip of you throwing dimes behind your back out of the post, okay? So I don't even try it. Don't even try it with me. If I start popping up old game footage, you know I'm going to another level. I'm not going to do that.
Hit that outro music for us, James. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Today's been a great show. We got great shows coming for you. I'll be back tomorrow with Mark Stein, because tomorrow the Legs is off, but we're going to have a very interesting Mavs game no matter what happens with Anthony Davis back. We'll also try to get a couple other guests to talk some teams. And then Wednesday, Legs is back. Friday, Legs is back as well. So we'll have 3 shows together, 4 shows in total. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.